I want to share a podcast making story that probably is going to change how I do my podcast. So perhaps I will look at this story I'm about to share with you as a little bit of serendipity. Maybe I needed the kick in the ass. I had a guest scheduled for the other night. The guest had been scheduled for about 6 weeks. The guest didn't show. The guest said something about the calendar was wrong. Whatever. I don't really care. I mean, it's only happened 4 or 5 times in 10 plus years where a guest got something wrong. Easy come, easy go, right? But I was prepared for this conversation, and I was a little bit curious about this conversation until something happened. Now, of course, the conversation never happened, but you'll see where I'm going in a second. So this author writes about change and responding to change. I doubt this author knows anything about trend following, but most of the big picture issues that this particular author was writing about in his book resonated with me. It sounded like trend following. Change is transformation. Having this rugged flexibility mindset, adapt to change. He talks about how people seek stability, but change is constant. He talks about dramatic disruptions. Made me think of the black swans swimming in. He talks about expectations and how people don't deal well with distress, how they don't have their resilience. A lot of his influences, Buddhism, Taoism, Stoicism, and ultimately being open to the flow of life. I mean, so much of this is like basic trend following 101. So, of course, a guy like me, I'll take that conversation. I'll have that conversation because it's in my wheelhouse. It's similar to where I already exist. And it's always cool when the guest that I'm going to talk to doesn't know about this connection. And I doubt this guest did know about the connection. But the interview didn't happen, scheduling reasons, whatever. But like I said, I was looking forward to it until something happened. And so it's kind of funny how the guest got a scheduling issue, but at the same time, I was a little uneasy about the interview. How could I be uneasy? I just described all these things that I like. Well, that's true, except the examples. The examples are political. Now, look, I get politics. Clearly, I get politics. And in the trend following world, I have seen many different political stripes. But at the end of the day, it's trend following. So you can be a rabid left winger, you can be a rabid right winger. It's still trend following. Now, I'm very far away from being a rabid left winger, but I have known of rabid left winger trend following traders who are legends, who have killed it. And for that, you got to give them all the respect. So I've really enjoyed over the years being in the middle of this world where different partisan stripes can exist, but they're all using the same strategy. So in my books, for example, I never really felt the need to start to talk about politics. Like it didn't really get how that could help me. And so if I have talked about politics in my books, it's usually with an interview. A guest brings something up. Maybe that guest and I share the same belief. But for example, trend following, my first book, it's just the facts, ma'am, and lots of examples, trading examples, personality examples, but not whether or not somebody voted this or voted that, or whether or not somebody was trying to ram down my throat their political persuasion. Now, the closest that I can imagine someone came to this in all my years of being in this space was Richard Dennis. Richard Dennis was an avowed Democrat. He supported certain causes like the legalization of marijuana. But later on in life, he also supported the Reason Foundation and Cato, which were two libertarian think tanks. That's not a defense of Richard Dennis or anything. I'm just sharing. He was ultimately one of the more political minded traders that I've seen in my world. Now, on the flip side, he did hire somebody like Jerry Parker, who was the exact polar opposite of Rich Dennis when it came to politics. But they meshed and they created history. So getting back to this author who was a no-show, and I don't see any reason to reschedule him, but I want to share with you what caused me, in advance of the interview that never happened, to be wary. So in a chapter called Open to the Flow of Life, this author states, in 2016, Americans saw the rise of Donald Trump and Trumpism, a political movement defined vaguely by making America great again. Though Trumpism may be disturbing, it is not surprising. As we saw earlier in this chapter, many people panic when they are dealt anomalous cards. The rise of LGBTQ and women's rights, the reality of climate change and the subsequent trade-offs we are being called upon to face, reckoning with the legacy of slavery and working toward genuine racial justice, waking up to the gruesome and embarrassing costs of too lax gun laws, and adjusting to an economy with more technology and automation, all represents cards that many Americans could have never imagined. Trumpism and other similar movements capitalize on people's discombobulation, offering them the false hope that by taking part in the movement, they will successfully evade change, maintain their status, and remain strong as they are. Of course, some change is worth resisting. The rise of evil forces such as Nazism comes to mind. But fighting against basic science, basic rights, basic decency, and basic liberalism does not make sense, especially not in a society that was founded upon these ideals and that functions well enough because of them, end quote. I mean, that's the plank for the Democratic National Committee's convention that they will hold in the summer of 2024 to renominate Joe Biden. That's great. I don't believe a word of what I just read. Nothing. Because it's all spin. I mean, you're trying to tell me, first off, that anybody in America who supports Trump can't respond to change. And therefore, anybody who supports Biden can respond to change. I mean, that's asinine. Completely asinine to take all of the people that would support Trump, essentially half the country, and say all these things about them. Things that are easily debated away. I mean, look, I know a lot of people on the conservative side, they don't wake up each day worrying about LGBTQ anything. Now, what they might care about is whether or not a tranny is in the library dancing in front of their kids. I don't know anybody on the conservative side that's running around shooting guns in the inner city. They might have guns in their gun safe in their house to protect themselves from an overeager state, but lax gun laws are not the problem with what goes on in inner city America. The problem with inner city America is inner city America. The problem are the people that pull the triggers. Take away the guns, bad behavior is still going to be there. But if you take away the guns, you got to change the Constitution. Now, let me just take a step back for a second, because you can already see where this goes. You're just in the middle of a debate. So why insert this kind of stuff into a book that's really not about this? And I agree with so many of the principles that he lays out. But if I open up the classic Buddhism books, the classic Stoic books, I'm not reading about lax gun laws or slavery hundreds of years ago or LGBTQ whatever. I don't even freaking know how many letters are going to be in the alphabet next week. I just don't care about any of this shit. So why is it on my plate? Why is it in every damn book that comes across my plate these days? I started interviewing non-traders in 2014. I've had great relationships with so many different people that have appeared on this podcast, many on the left, many on the right, many professors, often very to the left. We have great conversations. But since COVID, something has changed. Now, it's like someone has pressed a button, and every book that I see, every business book that I see, is filled with these planks, these talking points that look like they were written by some outside force. Now, I searched this particular book that I quoted from, and Trump is only mentioned on 2 pages. So 220 pages to tell great stories about change and responding to change, something I agree with, but then 2 pages to make half the country hate you. I don't get it. And it makes me wonder about how someone like me can go forward interviewing people. Because if people are going to just spout this stuff off, and I have an interview coming up with a guest who has a controversial background, and he said a bunch of controversial things, but when I asked him questions, I just got mealy-mouthed kind of nonsense. So I don't want to participate. I don't want to participate in the bullshit programming that is being thrust upon us. I like data. I like behavior. I like trading. And I don't want to listen to lies. I don't want to listen to propaganda. But this is where a lot of people are. Let me read one more quote from this particular book. Trumpism and similar movements may make some people feel safer in the short term, but they are a recipe for disaster in the long term, leading to a highly fractured society with significant regressive pockets. End quote. Trump did not create American cities. American cities are in free fall. They are disgusting, gross, violence, crime, out of control, tents everywhere, people shitting on the street. Trump did not do that. The people that think that Trump and a similar movement will make people feel safer in the short term are the ones that did that. I mean, I don't even know what this means. I don't even know what the fuck Trumpism means. Similar movements. What's similar movements? Make people feel safer in the short term. You mean if we stop the people with the violent behavior and put them in jail, people will feel safer? Duh, no shit. But if we do this, we're going to have a fractured society. We've already got a fractured society in America. It's already the Balkans. You know it, and I know it. Now, again, this is my point. If the book is about change and responding to change, what's the politics? What's the point? The point is they have a nonstop program to reprogram. And I'm not playing ball anymore. I'm bored out of my mind with what has happened to publishing since COVID. Every book literally looks like it was written by ChatGPT or something worse than ChatGPT, some mindless hack with talking points. Now, I'm not saying my guest that did not appear was a mindless hack, but I can tell you what, the writing that I've read today from that book is mindless hack writing. What purpose does it serve? I mean, you might as well say in the front of your book, only buy this if you're a left-winger. Only buy this if you're a leftist. And if you go out there and you buy a book by Ann Coulter or Sean Hannity, that's going to be a right-leaning book. I get it. But what's happened in publishing is the shit's all disguised. You think you're getting a book that's going to tell me something that I don't know. And in this book, for example, not that I was learning something that I didn't know, but I was getting reinforcement, positive reinforcement, until I got to the politics, until I got to the propaganda talking points. And then you're like, what the fuck? I don't want to play ball. I want out. And so, as I said at the top of this episode, maybe this is serendipity for me. Maybe I fucking had it. Maybe I need to go old school. And old school is me and a couple notes telling you how I feel, sharing some insights, some trading, some life, whatever. Make it interesting. Give you a little passion. Let you believe that there's someone out there that still is trying to be honest, trying to deal with the data in a fair way, and not just trying to ram the state's bullshit down your throat. You know, right after I just read that last passage, it says Trumpism and similar movements may make some people feel safer in the short term, but they are a recipe for disaster in the long term, leading to a highly fractured society with significant regressive pockets. The next sentence is, remember, life is change. If you fear change, then in many ways you fear life, and chronic fear becomes toxic both in self and in the culture at large. You see why it's so nefarious? In one sentence, it's pure politics about Trump and basically throwing a pail of shit water on 50% of the population. The next sentence is something we can all agree with. This is what's happened to publishing. Every damn book has got some of this woke ideology woven into it. And I can't do it anymore. The good people are not woke. They're not. The smart people are not woke. The weak are woke. The people afraid are woke. It's no way to go through life. I can surely understand if somebody doesn't like some aspect of Trump's personality. But guess what? I've seen some of these Hunter Biden files and stuff with Joe Biden. And there's more than enough room for people to not like the behavior of Joe Biden. And oh, by the way, this book, I searched it, Biden's name's not mentioned one time. That's something I've had to learn how to do in the last 4 or 5 years. You immediately search a book for political names. Maybe adding the political names helps the book to sell. Who knows? I don't give a shit. I'm bored with it all. Like I said, I want to get back to data, behavior, and trading. A lot of good life principles. To me, that feels like a better direction than trying to tie my arms behind my back to have interviews where you feel like somebody's put this stuff on paper and I've got to ask an honest question. And then they're either going to cancel the interview or not talk or give me some bullshit response. Because nobody will have a fair debate. When people start talking about LGBT, whatever, when people start talking about climate change, these are just buzzwords. What does climate change mean? What have you measured exactly? I sure as fuck don't know. You measured the what? Temperature of the earth? Going back how far? Whatever. What does it mean? What does it mean? I'm tired of the nonsense. And I think you are too. So I tell you what, going forward, I do have a handful of interviews still on the way. I will continue to find my great trader friends onto this podcast. And occasionally where I find an author or a personality who brings something really smart to the table, I promise to bring them on as a guest. But I think it's time for me to get back to basics and start to put the truth out there with heavy reinforcement. I'll see you again next week. I see a time when those awake will understand how to make money in up, down, and surprise markets. Whether new trader or experienced, college student or financial advisor, protecting against a crash or just trying to make a lot of money, trend following offers everyone an answer in uncertain times. To get started immediately, send me an email, michael@covel.com. I will send you the right trend following steps to take along with my free video. But if you want to buy and hold, trust the government and trust Wall Street, this is absolutely not for you.